Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the City of Farmers Branch Study Session meeting. It is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. The time is 3 p.m. We will begin, as always, with A1, discuss regular agenda items. Councilmember Driscoll.
Don't really have anything, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt.
You would know that I'd have a few. I'm gonna make
Let's get right
a
into it.
habit of this, so.
Only get 2 minutes.
Only get 2
I'm
minutes.
just kidding, I'm just kidding.
I'll be quick.
I'm
I'll
just
be quick.
kidding, I'm messing with you.
The first one is on actually I2 and I3. I looked at the application, and I'm glad we're having these applications, but there was only a PO box, and the applicant name is an LLC. I'm assuming that in the back office, we have all the information that we need because it talks about a driver's license and everything else.
We
in the
redact some information for Granicus, but it's a builder.
Understood.
And, yeah, so we do.
So is it possible that they could print their name on the signature line as well, rather than just, they just?
Well, they'll sign the agreement.
They'll sign the agreement.
So this
Okay.
is really
Typically,
just a
don't
formality,
do e-sign.
Okay,
We typically require it.
a real signature. Yeah.
fair enough. That answers I2 and I3. I had a question on I5, which was the flare. Yes. Is Advance One Development the same as Enterprise Power Systems on the attachment? Okay, thank you. We go down, no questions there. Fees. I'm good, Mayor, thank you. The rest will come in regular session, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lynn.
I had a question on I2 and I3 also. It basically is the same application for both properties. Are they building the same house on both?
So on the rendering, we put that there will be architectural detail differences on the second home, but it's basically a similar floor plan and it's the same builder. So it's the same applicant
Same applicant, yes.
for two properties, and they're using a similar floor plan, and the exterior elevations will be the difference,
Okay.
the materials selected.
Has this developer done business in the city before?
I don't believe so. I think this is a new home builder.
Okay. All right. Then moving along to I6.
Yes, sir.
I had a couple of questions that I noted. So, under the terms and conditions, so I was confused. It says the contractors shall be allowed to dispose of 689,000 tons of waste in landfill during the first 12 months of the term of this agreement. Such limit shall increase by 5% each 12-month period thereafter. So I thought we were trying to limit what was going in. And who tracks that tonnage in order to make sure that it's adequate or correctly reported, not underreported, so they can accommodate more revenue?
So all we've done there within that part is we switched from cubic yards to tons. The 5% escalator's been in there the entire time.
It has, okay.
The only thing, everything else we measure in terms of landfill is in tons. This is the only thing that's out there in terms of cubic yards. So on occasion, folks would ask me, how are we doing on this? It's tough to make that conversion between cubic yards and tons. Now, we've gone through, me and the contractors, lengthy process of looking at each year, right? How many cubic yards we take in, how many tons, what does that equal to? So we both feel very confident that number represents the equivalent cubic yards we had in the original contract.
Okay.
Then each year, we do an annual report. Sorry, go ahead, give another
No,
question.
go ahead.
And each year we do an annual report which tracks those tons that get disposed. And the one for this year should be coming out any day now. I was hoping to have it for this meeting to kind of update the model, but I haven't seen it yet. But typically this time each year, we do an annual report which shows how many tons we dispose at the landfill. And it
Okay.
gets reported to the state.
So that projected life of the landfill takes into account that number increasing by 5% each year.
Well, the annual report you do each year shows how that previous year did, and it assumes you keep that same rate going forward. So it's a snapshot of that year that we do for the annual report. Now, what we do internally amongst them, yes, it includes the things you're looking for, and making sure in terms of 5% escalator, we're staying within that, that's my job to track that.
Okay. So if I went down a little bit,
Yes, sir.
under the city fees and compensation, the usage fee for each month during the term shall be $83,000, which we get from
Yeah, they pay that regardless, no matter how many
Yeah.
tons come in, it's
So that's-
$83,000 per month.
about $1 million
Correct.
right there, with no consumer price index or no other adjustments.
Correct. So
So-
if they did nothing that year, we get $1 million.
But they're always going to do something.
Right, so that's where you get into the royalty, which is the next page of the contract.
Okay, so when I looked at the next page,
Yes, sir.
so why, we were 18% the first year, and then we were going down for years 2, 3, and beyond. And I just wasn't sure,
Been at 16% for municipal solid waste,
you know,
and that stays the same. That does not change from now until we close the site.
okay.
The thing that's in there tonight that's a change is the C&D material. So if you remember, when we realized Rachel hadn't been to Camelot yet, so I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. The old scale house had one scale to weigh in and weigh out. I'm not talking about one each direction, I'm talking about one for both directions. It was a bottleneck operationally. We knew some of the things I'm gonna talk about here shortly in my presentation were gonna occur in terms of the market. We need to be able to get more trucks into and out of our site. So we need to build a scale house. The public worked with us, and they own a landfill called Louisville Landfill that accepts only demolition, construction demolition material. They agreed to mothball that site and divert all that waste to our landfill. And we use that revenue just from that C&D material to fund our debt obligation to the scale house.
Right.
And so 12% in there, they need to be able to reopen Louisville landfill. We give them permission for that. For our third contract amendment, told them how long they had to keep sending that material here. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've paid off the debt from the scale house, so we don't necessarily need that material to come in anymore. So their plan, once we just, if you agree to it tonight and pass this, they will begin the process of reopening Louisville landfill
Yes.
beginning of calendar year 2022. They need the permission to do that. Until they do that, the revenue from that we get, and that C&D material is 12%. Once they reopen Louisville landfill, everything is 18% across the board.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 16%.
Okay, all right. I think you answered my question, so I'm good there.
Okay.
All right. And then regarding I-7, well, I wanted to see if we could put that on regular agenda and have some additional discussion about it outside of consent.
Say that one more time. I apologize.
Item I-7, I wanted to see if we could move that to regular agenda, just to have some additional discussion downstairs on it, instead of it being a consent item.
Anyone have any problem with that?
No problems.
Thank you. I'm done.
Whoever is, I guess, making the motion for the consent agenda item tonight, make so that it's I-1 through 6 and then I-8 through 11.
Correct.
Should that be the final count of consent? We will then move I-7 to K2. We'll move K2 to K3. Okay.
You'll also have to make the motion to move, to make the move, correct, as part of the consent?
No, we're-
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
When you make the motion on the floor for the consent agenda, you also have to make the motion to move I-7 to the regular agenda. So basically, if I would do it, I would make the motion to move I-7 to the regular agenda and approve items number I-1 through I-6, and then items I-8 through I-11, correct?
The rest of the consent agenda.
The rest of the consent agenda, okay. Sorry, just clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Williams.
I have nothing to add.
Councilmember Rotana.
Nothing for me, sir, thank you.
All right. A2, receive Parks and Recreation Board biannual report.
All righty. Rachel, where would I find that, the PowerPoint on here real quick? Get started.
Uh,
'Cause I- 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 'cause I
Mayor, Council, we've got Parks and Recreation biennial update for you with Bob Stewart, the chair.
Where do you start the program on this? Slideshow start, okay. How about from beginning? There? All righty, then just use the right tab. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Stewart, and I'm the chairperson for the Parks and Rec Board. And thank you guys for inviting me. Would have wore a tie, but I like my shirt much better here from the Parks and Rec Board. So instead of reading you our mission and vision statement, let me just give you a couple of examples of how we mesh the two together. As you can see, there's the Barney Woods Bark Park, which used to be a football field. And this is a really good example of how we took a football field that didn't have a whole lot of usage. And based on some surveys from the residents, everybody wanted a dog park. So we are able to repurpose this and make it a dog park and actually end up getting a couple of awards in the process. Another example is one that we have in progress right now is a sand volleyball pit that we kind of have in the works that we want to place over where Montgomery Elementary School used to be. So that was brought to us by the Parks and Rec staff. They were looking for some creative projects and brought that to the board. We've approved it. Now it's moved up the chain of command. And then there's also one that you may not have heard of. It's a Frisbee park, but that's just kind of in infancy now. So that's how we try or constantly looking at what the residents of Farmers Branch want, look what we have, see how the needs are changing, and then move forward. So this is I believe my 6th year on the Parks and Rec Board, and it's been a blast from day one. We we dream big, and then we see what happens. So because of COVID, I've chosen to compare this is a biennial report, so I've chosen to compare the 6-month period of April to September of 2021 to 2019, because 2020, in my mind, just really didn't exist. So some of our statistics, like the aquatics, the natatorium has seen like a 17% increase in visits. The frog pond, we've had over 42,000 attendees this summer, which is really just about 6% shy of our 2019 numbers. So we're making a lot of progress. And our 2019 numbers were a little bit inflated because we are fortunate, because Carrollton had their pool shut down for the whole year, so we gained a lot of people from Carrollton coming over and using our pool, which also enabled us to gain a lot of new swim people. So that worked out really well for us. The rec center. So we've completed phase 1, which was completed in April. In phase 2, they'll begin in 2022. And the rec center is just it's turned into a really awesome place. You can see when people come into the rec center now, there's a reception desk right in the center. So we see them, they see us, they come in and get their stuff scanned. The kids zone is like twice as big as what it used to be. It's really, really modern looking. On the first floor, what used to be the gym, we have a whole lot more equipment. It's wide open, it's easy to get to. If you want to spend a day at the gym, you can come in, get on the treadmill, log into your Netflix account, watch TV. You can record your own workouts. So I would say that for the low price that people pay for memberships is a bargain compared to a lot of the other facilities around Dallas. So our business is picking up. So we've had like a 37% increase in usage, and membership sold is up over 138%. The rental revenues, several years ago, with our different soccer fields, baseball fields, it was pretty much limited to in-house usage only, or leagues and stuff. And our parks are really pristine. We have an awesome Parks and Rec department that really keep the fields in good shape. So we quickly figured out that we could turn that into rental revenue. So we've increased the rental from about $3,000 a year to, I forget what the numbers were there, to like around $300,000 a year in less than 4 years, because all our practice fields, there's a lot of need for practice fields, and Farmers Branch has provided a lot of that. Also, we've partnered with a company called, Texas Dynamics to begin teaching gymnastics along with a kids' night out and birthday party packages. And some of the other new programs that we've brought on board is Kung Fu for kids and adults and piano lessons. We've also kept some of our long-term favorites like Variate, which is an aerobics program, preschool dance, yoga, Zumba, and Strong, which is, I understand, is a more advanced aerobics program. So a bunch of the events that we had this year, oops, I got ahead of myself, hang on a second. My favorite, the 4th of July. I love the in-your-face fireworks from 100 feet up. And we had over 6,500 people attend that. Our family night out, we had a little over 2,000 people. We had 2 happy hours, which was 117 people. We had 6 Didn't Drive Live series, which is there's a lot of great cover bands that have come to do that. We had a little over 4,000 of that. Our Summer Sunshine program, we had a little, at the end of the year, we have a Summer Kids Carnival, and due to COVID, that almost got shut down, but the staff managed to revamp it to a drive-through, so it was still highly, highly successful. And then we also had a daddy-daughter dance, which we had 206 people, and I believe about 71% of those people were actual residents of Farmers Branch, so that was a big success. But I love those fireworks, they're awesome. So looking to the future. So I talked earlier about the sand volleyball pits. Those are coming up. It's been, like I say, it's been approved by the Parks and Rec Board. We've moved it up to the city council to have them approve it. Our next big thing is our Jewel Park, Hoya Park, which will be over at Oren Good Park. So we've gotten like $5 million in the bank already on that and should get another $5 million this year from what I understand. So that's probably a 3 to 5 year program. Did I get some numbers wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a heck of a part.
Yeah, that's a great part of the 4 million that was approved.
Was that 4 million?
Oh,
So I was just off by me.
That's okay.
We're not even talking real money here.
Just say it and see if they agree, right?
Bob's lobbying for a little more help.
Well, I tell you, we've learned to dream big on these things. So if you don't ask for a lot, you don't get a lot,
I like your style, Bob.
You like the sound?
I like your style.
Well, back to the sand volleyball pitch, that's about a 25K. It's a quick turnkey program. If we get it approved, we could probably rent those out because, sand volleyball is especially after the Olympics, it always grows big and there's really, it's just a great way to repurpose that area. And there's plenty of parking there. We have benches and it's right across the street from the rec center, so it won't be a hard sell for people to find it. So now that we've kind of got the rec side figured out, we start looking at the park side. So we have a new park superintendent named Kerry Phillips. And so some of the new changes he's brought along with him is a little bit more improvement in technology. So like putting iPads in our vehicles, so that allows us to just manage our day-to-day operations better, handle projects. If we see something that needs to be fixed, they can immediately enter it into the system, get it rolling, get it worked out. The other thing that we've done is, in the past, we've had two people crews who work in certain parts of the city. So what he's doing is changing that over and making it more, the crews built on their skills. And so that way you can get the people that have the appropriate skills to the right spot to get the job done on time. And that's really all I have right now. Any questions? So it's exciting. It's exciting time, and I'm looking forward to the Hoya Park. I'm rolling off in June, so maybe I can find some other place in the Parks Department to work on stuff like that.
Bob, thank you for your presentation and your leadership. I think we were on the Parks Board together
Yeah.
many moons ago.
many moons ago.
So, but, Councilmember Donovan, any other question?
I have a question, and this may be more of a question for staff. So when I first got on council, one of the things that we talked about was the need for more soccer fields for our community. And that's when we decided about the Montgomery field. And I think a couple months ago, we talked about adding goals to the field. And so are the sand volleyball courts going to be kind of secondary to the soccer field? Or are we not gonna have soccer
No, we'll
goals
still have
anymore?
soccer. Secondary, it's just a small.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping. Because I know we were still trying to look for some goals to put there. And I think the reason why people don't play there is because there's no lines and there's no goals. So as soon as we do that, I know we'll get some more folks to come. But anyways, that's my only question, just to see if there was, if that was secondary to kind of what we already talked about. And then my second question was, Hoya is gonna be coming, I think, and I was driving by and looking at the equipment. What do we do with the existing park equipment? Do we quote unquote recycle that and to put it in a open space? What do we do with that, with those pieces?
Few different options. If it's irreparable and worn down, we would just discard it if it's unusable. If it's new stuff and we can use it at a different park, we can go ahead and transplant that. Third option is take it to auction. If it's still usable, we can't use it, then we send it to auction.
Would there be opportunities to work with some apartment complexes to see if we can give them a good rate to bring those equipments into some of those complexes that may have some need for that?
think
Is
they
that
would-
something we've done in the past?
No, and public-private, when you start co-mingling
Sure.
that, it's a little dicey. So
Gotcha.
that would have to go to auction and then they can purchase that through the auction
Gotcha.
process. Again, I don't know if you've looked at our auction site, but sometimes you can find great deals on there. So
Yeah.
if they knew it was coming, they could certainly look. Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
I don't know a lot of neighbors that would, oh, that would look good in my backyard, so they might get it for a
Sure,
good deal,
sure,
right?
sure. Well, no, I just, I see some of our smaller complexes and I see that there's some open spaces and there's so many kids and so, if we can find a way to keep those in our own neighborhoods and to really offset some of those needs, I think that would be really great. Or maybe just having a conversation with some of them to say, hey, just let you know, this is an opportunity. Because I don't know if they even know that we have an auction.
Yeah, and that's something we
available.
can notify them of.
Sure, okay.
I think that's a great idea, because
Yeah.
we might actually get a bid that way, otherwise it might be tough, right?
Yeah, because there's actually one right there in my district, right next to Vintage Place. There's some apartment complexes in town and duplexes, and there's just open space, and there's kids everywhere all the time when I drive through there in the evening. So anyways, I think just doing one more due diligence to just let them know, it may be a good idea. I don't know. But anyways, just curious about that. Thank you so
Great
much.
idea.
Councilmember Williams?
Thank you so much, Bob. That was some great information. I just had, when y'all talk about asking and dreaming big and keeping a real open mind and a broader look at our amenities and our parks. I want to be sure that we're looking at things at not just a return on investment from a monetary standpoint, where our residents are having to reinvest into these projects that are essentially paid for with tax dollars. And so, like, when we're talking about the volleyball fields, I think I'm super excited about that. I know I've got a 16-year-old son who's super excited about those coming back on board. But I just don't want us to get to a point where the only way that we'll look at doing an amenity like that is if we have a rental agreement in order to reimburse the city for those investments. Because I think from an amenity standpoint, those things there should be at least some portion of that that's available at no extra cost to our residents, like the sand volleyball, like the soccer. It shouldn't always be geared towards how do we make money off of these amenities. Because I know for me as a council member, when I'm looking at approving monies for a project, as a representative of a taxpayer, I don't expect them to have to continue to pay for that amenity that their tax dollars already paid for. Do you see what I mean? And so, so I would just encourage y'all to continue to think big and it not always be geared towards that, how are we gonna make money off of this project? So,
From a park board, from my perspective, we just look at what the changing needs of the residents are. At that point in time, we don't really care what it costs. We just say,
I love that.
Are we using this anymore? no, we're not using this tennis court, so let's make it a pickleball court. Or this is just a piece of grass out here, or this is a football field, everybody wants this. And then, the city does surveys every year or so. And so that's kind of what, we look at those surveys, or what we're just from talking to people. I mean, I go to the dog park all the time just to see what's going on, and it's always just jam-packed.
It is.
So that's, our deal on dreaming is just, what does the residents need? And we bring it up to you guys, and you guys decide whether it's something that's affordable, do we want to charge for it, do we not want to charge for it? But we're not really concerned with the money level. We're just concerned at satisfying and getting more people to move into Farmers Branch and growing as the kids get older.
I love that.
And you'll see that, Councilwoman, too, if we do go forward with the volleyball courts, it would, if we did do a fee, it would come before on an Appendix A deal. But the intent of that is, like Bob said, is just serving the residents. I think when we had talked internally, if we did tournaments out there, different story, right? But
For sure,
mostly
for
just
sure.
wide open.
Yep, yep. Thank you.
Councilmember Lynn?
Bob, Mike, I have one topic that I just wanted to address, and that was our baseball fields over at Oren Good are considered premier facilities. We're now renting those out for soccer practice.
Yeah, that.
How was that decision made, and does that really fit with use of those fields?
Yeah, so it's not uncommon to rent softball or baseball overlays for soccer practice when baseball's not in season. So it's just making use of area that's typically open, more or less. So I've seen it done every city I've been in before, so that's just, when it's not being used, we monetize it essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Merritt?
No questions, but thank you very much, Bob.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Yes, I have a couple of comments, and one just to the point that Councilmember Williams brought up. I'm in agreement with that. I don't want to see everything we develop to be necessarily geared toward being a profit center. I don't think we do that with everything, but certainly things like, we don't charge to use our parks, and the Montgomery Park it's just been sitting there, and I mean, that's a low dollar investment, 25 grand or whatever, to put in the,
Volleyball.
yeah, and I think, we want to encourage people to get out and enjoy the parks, whether that's hiking, biking, walking their dogs, teaching their kids how to ride bikes, whatever it is, and to get people out to play volleyball, play soccer, just enjoy the outdoors. I think that, is a worthy goal, and to Councilmember Williams' point, everyone pays taxes and everything to make the investments we have in the city and our infrastructure. So I'm not really crazy about the idea that we'd be charging fees for residents to use it, like if, what do I know, some teenagers or some people want to start a little league, just, play the guys on the other street or whatever like that, to try to make it a profit center. Again, just compliments for your work and for the board's work. I love our parks, and, everywhere I go, people talk about the parks here and that we invest in our parks and keep them up. A lot of cities have parks, but they don't invest and reinvest in them, and we do, and we expand them, and I think residents really appreciate that. Just one point on the Montgomery Park. I think I'd suggested in a previous meeting, I think it'd be nice if we had half a dozen picnic tables, maybe under those big oak trees. That would also, again, bring people into the park, and like you said, it's by the rec center and the natatorium, and people go, oh, well, let's go do this and that, and go over there and, have a picnic or whatever. And again, that's a low-cost investment, but I think it'd be a very nice addition. All I have.
Thank you. Final comment, Councilmember Rotano?
Yes, just one thing, and Bob, this may be something that maybe you can help with. So one of the things that I've been hearing a lot from some residents is love the Barneywood Dog Park. But, for residents that have large dogs that don't want to get wet, they won't take them to our dog park because of the water feature. There's not a way to get them away from the water feature. And so I don't know if that's something that you all have heard, but, I don't know if there's a survey of sorts that we could do with some of the dog owners in the big dog park. I will say I take mine to the Addison one because sometimes I groom my dog and I don't want him to get wet. So if there was a way to kind of have another gate there where it's still kind of open, but still there's an opportunity for folks that don't want to have their dog get wet, are able to do that. It's really hard to deter them from, not getting wet. But, and I, like, again, I've heard a lot from some of my neighbors, and so, so anyways, I'm just curious to see what the thoughts are around that. So I don't know if y'all have heard anything.
I've not heard anything personally. It's a catch-22, right?
It is.
It's an allure for a lot of people to come
Yep.
there because it's a unique feature, right? Some people don't do that, so they go another place. I think we have a unique opportunity with the park that we're doing over on Mercer, perhaps. And we'll engage the residents over there and see what they want. But if we do a smaller dog space, if there's area over there, we could not do water features, and then that way there's an option.
Sure.
Yeah, in park
Okay.
signage.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see if, what other folks think about that, because I do think the way it's set up, it's kind of like an L shape to where we could add another gated area to where it's still a huge park compared to other parks, if we do get a lot of that feedback, and maybe we just haven't had to ask the question. So I'm just curious to see if maybe some of the other park board members have heard that, but would love to get any feedback if
I mean,
possible.
I haven't, but that's not a bad, that's not a bad idea, maybe put a fence or something around it. So I don't know if we got a survey coming out soon, or
not
when
on-
it's out, that might add that question to it.
Not on that particular, the only challenge I see with that is you're encouraging people to go in the center of the park where dogs run. And personally, I've had a friend that had a horrific accident from a dog undercutting knees, and so that's what I'm always just a little bit cognizant of
Sure.
in that regard.
Sure.
But yeah, Bob, you're out there all the time, you can
Yeah.
ask residents.
And even, if you make it, if you put a fence, then you kind of encourage dogs to stay in a certain area, then it becomes a mud zone instead of being able to spread out. So it's
Sure.
kind of a catch-22. You
It
can go-
is,
go
yeah.
either way.
I was just curious, but
Yeah.
if there's another option to where we have another public park where people can use it, that may be another, and it would also have people actually visit the west side that they might not be familiar with, especially as development comes in. So it's a really great solution. Thanks. Just curious. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, next is A3, receive a report on the city-owned Camelot landfill permit, long-term operations, and operations contract and financial. Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For some of you that were at a strategic retreat a couple years ago, a lot of these slides may look familiar. But many of y'all, this is your first chance to really talk about the landfill itself. I'm hoping in the near future we can find a date for those of you who haven't been out there and want to go take a tour. I can get you out there and show you around the site. Most folks that have this preconception of what a landfill looks like. I know we took the Youth Advisory Council out there recently. I was getting questions about, does it look like Toy Story? Does it look like WALL-E? For those of y'all that have seen some of these movies. That was their experience with the landfill. They're curious, is this what it's going to look like when I get out there? Anyway, today we're going to discuss the long-term financial performance of the landfill based on information we know today. As a professor of mine at Tech, beat into my head for many years, your model's only as good as your assumptions. So when we're looking through this, we'll talk about what I've made assumptions on. But before we actually get into the landfill model itself, let's kind of talk a little bit about Landfill 101. So first off, just in terms of the market itself, there's been some changes. Denton, gentleman I used to work for at the City of Lubbock, took over the job in Denton before I came here. He has since retired, and Denton's changed their philosophies. They kind of only wanted to accept waste from north of Lake Louisville, and now open themselves up to take some waste from south in terms of their pricing. As you know, Camelot Landfill for us, we got our permit, our amendment to expand our permit in 2017. And then next to us, probably the biggest change that's coming is DFW Landfill. DFW Landfill, if you go up I-35, that's the landfill you see at Hebron Parkway. That's owned and operated by Waste Management. In terms of commercial usage, that site will close at the end of this calendar year. So they will stay open, do the cash flow until they get their closure done, and just taking little chunks of waste here and there. But in terms of being a true competitor to us, those days should end come into December this year. So previous council, prior council expressed concern about the life of the landfill. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the ways you can make a landfill last longer is to divert more material from that. Currently, as a city, we're doing that with our brush program. So we made the leap to change terms how we collect brush material. So hence we have 3 weeks out of the month we pick up only clean brush, 1 week out of the month is bulk. That has led us to divert that material to, in this case, the moment, living earth technologies. We recently looked into, between myself and Camelot Landfill TXLP representatives, the ability to have a composting site at Camelot Landfill. And if you look in the southeast corner of Denton County, there really are no mulching or composting facilities up there. However, for the third party to operate it, their financial requirements, which have been the burden of Republic Services, were pretty high on a monthly basis until they could get themselves off the ground. However, we want to create a pathway for them in the future, should we find a financial arrangement that does work for all parties, to be able to do that. And so, in the resolution for the contract amendment tonight, that is one of the things we've changed in there. It creates a pathway. We don't have to come back to you again and say, hey, we've found a way to make this work. Give us approval. You're essentially allowing us to continue to look for ways to make that happen and negotiate that as it comes up. So in terms of landfill basics, I talked a little bit about this earlier. Camelot Landfill is what we call a Type 1 municipal solid waste landfill. Texas has its own category of solid waste. If you go to other cities, it's usually hazardous or non-hazardous. Texas, because they had the rules in place first, kept their rules. So here you have typically hazardous waste landfills, municipal solid waste landfills, and construction demolition material landfills. So in our case, we take most everything you produce at your house and most commercial waste. We can't take hazardous waste from industrial or commercial generators. That has to go to a hazardous waste landfill. Think of a landfill as a 3D warehouse. Basically, once you fill up all those cubic yards of airspace, your warehouse is closed, you should close up shop, and you're done. So our goal out there is to compact as much waste as we can into what our unit of measure is a cubic yard. I really had to say we change that. But that's how you measure things in terms of your airspace in cubic yards. So you want to compact as much material in there as you can. That's called your density. Due to change or issues in the past where people would either walk away from landfills, they pollute the groundwater, pollute the area around them, there's no real cleanup mechanism. At the national level, they instituted what's called financial assurance. So any landfill is required to have financial assurance. So should the city of Farmers Branch say, you know what, we're done with Camelot, we're walking away, we're finished. The state's gonna say, that's fine. We're gonna take this financial assurance money and go close that site up properly. So we're gonna come after the person who operates it. And that's what your financial assurance does. There's two components, actually for us three. There's closure. So basically once you fill it up, you go through what's called closure, which is you get everything buttoned up neatly, put in a cover system, make sure all your gas wells are up and operating and all across the site. And you got a very limited amount of time you can start that when you say you close. This is why DFW landfill is not really gonna close for quite a while. They'll keep taking small amounts of waste to get everything graded the way they want it to, and Waste Management has the cash flow to then turn around and close their landfill. Once you close it, you then have 30 years to monitor it. This is called your post-closure period. So you have to have money set aside for the state to come in and do that for 30 years, monitoring your groundwater, your gas production, looking for erosion on site. Those are the most common things you deal with in post-closure, other than maintaining your fences, trying to keep people off your property. Should you have any groundwater issues out there, then you also have corrective action. So we have corrective action in place. We have a portion of our landfill that was built according to the liner standards at that time, which is just soil. In the early 90s, they passed national legislation, Resource Conservation Recovery Act, which mandated new types of liners. So everything built after that date complies with the new regulations. But those y'all live in Texas long enough, especially in North Texas, where our soil has a lot of clay, get a drought, clay is going to crack until you get enough rain that it self-heals and renews and comes back together. So the same thing would happen with our old portion of landfill. There's times you go through a drought, a little period of cracks, and some gas may escape and get into the groundwater. So Camelot Landfill, our new permit is 1312B. That was approved on August 28, 2017. Gives us a total disposal capacity of 53 million, or 53.2 million cubic yards. So this gave us additional airspace above and beyond what was already permitted. Your financial assurance, the requirement today is 35 million. This is what was submitted to TCEQ, the most recent TCEQ submittal. And it includes those three items to talk about: closure, post-closure, and corrective action. Each year this number is adjusted based on inflation. And should you do any work, any closure work in that meantime, you can subtract that away and it changes your cost. So each year you kind of look at it and see what you've done and also apply a inflationary factor to get the new number. So here's kind of a countdown for the past 4 annual reports. So Terry, I mentioned that to you. Here's kind of an annual report. We expect our new one to come out any day now. It's kind of show you the cubic yards that are available each year, kind of what we've been using up on an annual basis. We have a gas collection system installed across almost the entire landfill. There's only a couple small portions. We don't have wells there yet, but the next go-around, we will certainly have wells in that last little corner area. The maximum elevation we can fill to, and this is mean sea level, is 675 feet. Our previous maximum fill level is 523 feet. So in certain areas, we're going to be able to go about 150 feet higher than what we could before. So nice thing is you go taller, all that weight tends to weigh down on itself, which compacts a lot more than what you could do with just the machine. So over time, you get some airspace you get back due to the density itself. The area I talked about before is just a soil liner. It's called the pre-subtitle D area. That part, we're only allowed to go up to 623 feet. So when you go out there, where we get done, it's going to look like this. So significant developments, I've talked a little bit about some of this already in the previous discussion, but we had a contract amendment with Camelot Landfill TXLP, and that's a wholly owned subsidiary of Republic Services. They agreed to mothball Louisville Landfill, which is about 2,100 tons per day. It's supposed to go for about 8 years. The additional revenue was used to pay for the debt obligation for the new scale house and maintenance facility out there. As I talked about earlier, also DFW Landfill is closing sooner than we originally had heard a while back. What happened recently is basically Waste Management sold their operations to Republic in the Dallas area. Republic sold their operations to Waste Management in the Austin area. Somehow they all magically coincided at the same time. So essentially, Waste Management is out of this market. You may see a couple of Waste Management trucks around. It's because folks have national contracts. They want to see Waste Management trucks service their dumpsters. That's the only reason you see a green truck still in the city. DFW landfill is about a 5,000 plus ton per day landfill. That has certainly come way down. It's about half of that now. And as I said, it will close commercially at the end of this year. So the big change in the budget you approved this year is we're actually starting to fund the post-closure fund again. In this case, it's $1 million per year. That's a big thing. Thank you for doing that. Because due to the size of our landfill, we have obligations now in terms of gas collection system, and we can't just do it voluntarily. We have to do it based on the number of years waste has been in place. So here we are to the mathematical model, the pro forma. There's the professor's name that would beat that into my head when we were looking at phytoplankton growth in Antarctica. We can discuss that over beer at some other time if you want to. Typically, the standard is usually 15% of your airspace is consumed by soil. Because we use tarps, another alternate daily cover that's approved by the state, the model is down to 10%. So I don't expect us to use as much. Hopefully we do even better than that, but my model's been reduced down to that. The contract minimum for density, so this is how many pounds can I put into a cubic yard with the large machines out there, is 1,600. A model, our contractor's done better than that throughout the life of their contract. The model's at 1,800. We talked a little bit about how tall it is. That should give us even more density, so I think it will do better than that over time. That's the expectation. So basically, they've modeled out the tons per year, and that's what I put into the pro forma. I assume tipping fee is going to go up about 1% per year from where it's at today. The inflation for our solid waste collection cost, which is, although you don't have an enterprise fund here, we typically talk about how the cost from the landfill revenue basically covers the cost of your solid waste collection. I assume that will grow 2% per year. And then the inflationary factor for landfill closure, post-closure, I make the assumption that's 2% per year also. So basically with that model, the life of site gets us to 2042. This also keeps them under the waste cap we've talked about, the 5%, so it stays underneath that. Here's some of the fees you just discussed. The annual usage fee is about $1 million per year. That's at $83,000 per month that Terry asked about earlier. Royalties are 16% of gross revenue. Once they open up Louisville landfill, everything will be at 16%. Republic also pays $93,000 on our behalf to the city of Lubbock. It's part of our host fee or our settlement agreement for the city of Lubbock, city of Louisville, not Lubbock. Flashback. They also provide host fee support. So we pay the city of Louisville $1.20 per ton for every ton of garbage that comes across our scales. Republic helps support that at 25 cents per ton, up to $250,000 per year. Also, when you get out there, you'll see we have a facility on place that takes our landfill gas. We sell the landfill gas to them. They turn it into electricity. That generates about $290,000 per year. With natural gas all of a sudden coming on board after we signed that agreement, the revenue is not as much as I'd hoped in the past, but should the price of natural gas go up, which is at the moment, hopefully we start to see that creep up too. And also, when that contract ends, we can look at possibly using landfill gas as pipeline quality gas. That'd be a different project altogether. So there's a potential in the future maybe to make more revenue off of the sale of landfill gas. We just talked about post fee payment. So here's your, we kind of walked these already, but there's how it breaks out. That 35 million I talked about earlier, 20 million is closure, 11.8 is post closure, and 3.2 is corrective action. That's based, again, on the most recent submittal to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. So what does that give you? So in terms of revenue, landfill gas, at $290,000 per year until 2042, the estimation is about $6 million, assuming that number doesn't go up. Camelot landfill TXLP payments, so that's your $1 million per year, your $93,000, your host fee support, your royalty calculations is estimated at $196 million until that time. Add those two together, you get $202 million. We'll end up paying the city of Louisville $37 million in host fee payments based on those tonnage numbers. The cost of residential collection over the time is estimated at $64 million. The net closure, post-closure, corrective action, we talked about $35 million before. Assuming you put $1 million, not just you, but future councils, put $1 million in the closure, post-closure going forward, that's how we get to this net number. So you got 20 to 21 years of $1 million set-asides, take that closure, post-closure left at the end, subtract the 21 million from it, that's how I get to the 13. So your total obligations that we kind of attribute to landfill revenues is 114. The net revenue after that's $88 million. So what are the next steps? Tonight you have on the agenda the fourth contract amendment, which will allow Public to reopen Louisville landfill and make some other changes in there. The biggest concern I have at Camelot landfill going forward is the site's under what we call a soil deficit. Today you don't have enough soil to meet your closure obligations or your daily cover obligations. Until you get out there and see, the area is within a floodplain. The only part that's not in the floodplain is the landfill itself. We built it up. We have a road that goes around it that gets us up out of the floodplain. So I can't necessarily just go dig up soil out of the floodplain without doing an offset somewhere else. So one of the things we put in this contract amendment is it allows them to take in clean soil. We don't get any royalties off of it. The choice is you can either let them bring it in cheaply now, or you can pay a premium in the future when we say, hey, I need $3 million of soil. Someone's going to realize that I got $3 million, but you're not going to get it at the rate you can get it at today, when there's no need for it. So I'm trying to be strategic in that regard and have them start bringing in soil, because they're going to do a lot of the stuff. They'll put at least 1.5 feet over the landfill, which is called intermediate cover. When they get done operating in certain areas, they have to by regulation. So that's something you'd have to build into your closure cost anyway. If you walked away today, you have to put that much soil over top of it, plus your liner, plus another 1.5 feet of soil on top of that to grow grass. So anything I can do to get them to bring soil in now and take care of that stuff is going to benefit the city in the future, and that's what I'm looking at with this. You've got very limited space you can store soil, so that's the other problem. They're not going to be able to take in 3 million yards of soil at one point in time. We just don't have a place to store it out there. But occasionally, should a highway project come in, something like that, and we can bring that soil in, at least a large chunk of it, that'll be good, but you're trying not to handle it too many times. You don't have the space don't want to move it around all the time because you're just running up your own operational costs. Again, it also provides a contractual pathway for the mulching operation out there. Changes the annual waste disposal cap from cubic yards to tons. And it says they have to give us at least 20 years of life at the landfill is what that contract amendment does. Any questions?
Councilmember Lynn, I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Shane. So just in regards to the, hey, do you mind if I stand? I got a pinch nerve in my back. It's killing me. So in regards to the soil that's needed,
Yes, sir.
and understand we don't have room to necessarily stockpile soil out there. So our alternative is the longer we wait, the more we're gonna have to buy,
Correct.
okay? And,
I said it won't be at a premium price also, is my concern.
okay, I'm just curious, any estimate of what it would cost to buy 3 million cubic yards of soil at some future date? Do we know?
20 years from now, I can certainly get a number and get back to you. I've asked Republic just kind of what are they paying today, hauling it in, if they had to go just haul in some dirt from somewhere. I don't know how much they, they gave me a number, it was pretty low, but I don't know where it was coming from or where they got that number. They're probably just borrowing from the Louisville landfill, if I had to guess. What's our hauling cost to run it 2 miles down the road? Because the number I got back was
Okay.
really low.
So would we be able to look at maybe cities that are doing dredging of lakes or ponds or any of that sort of stuff?
Exactly, so as those things become available, that's why the salespeople can go after those, knowing they're not gonna pay a royalty on that to us. I can price this really aggressively and get that soil in here. That's what I'm trying to achieve here and incentivize them to do that. And so the other benefit of this, and I probably didn't connect the dots completely, that closure cost, that's got that soil account built into it, of purchasing it. So anything I do to get that soil in, that closure number should start coming down also. So it's that's what I'm looking at also, is how do I get that number down even lower? And it's by getting clean soil in here that we'll need in the future. It reduces that closure cost also.
All right. And if we were to start up the mulching
Mulching, yes, sir.
operation, any estimate timetable?
No, we need to come, we talked about last time, I think it was 90,000 per month they wanted. And the city made it very clear to Republic, we weren't putting any of that bill. We wanted out here, so that was gonna put all the burden on Republic to cover those costs until that third party was fully operational or self-sustaining. And we had no clue how long that would take, and so asking them to take that on for, is it 2 months, is it 2 years? We didn't know. And so until we get a better feel for that, until we start seeing maybe some of the other cities implement the changes we made. I see Dallas trying to do that, it's my understanding going forward, but they're not gonna come to ours, they're gonna go to their own facility. But I would think over time, some of the other cities will wanna be a little more progressive also in terms of that, and not just send everything to the landfill. But do I know when it's gonna start off? I don't, Terry, I really don't. If I gave you a number, it'd be me just making a number up, and I won't do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
Shane, appreciate the presentation. I've read all the material. I'm good with what you've laid out, and I look forward to the discussion.
Nothing,
No, I'm good.
I screwed up one of the numbers to see if you catch it.
Yeah. Think, score one for Shane.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Yes, thanks for the presentation, Shane. Just following on from Councilmember Lynn's questions, looking out to 2042, I mean, who could predict the next 2 years, let alone 5 or whatever? I mean, aren't all these kind of unknown costs? And,
They are.
you know, the way the area is developing and growing,
We're gonna
you
keep
know, available
producing.
soil from construction or transportation projects, it's all kind of unpredictable, isn't it?
Fair question. I would tell you, in terms of Texas, how do I put this politely? We're not progressive in terms of environmental things here yet, but I would really watch what goes on in LA. New York is totally out of airspace, so they're shipping stuff. Places like that are going to drive innovation in terms of what would be the next competitor to disposal. Whether it's pyrolysis, which is high pressure and high heat to produce a gas, I don't know. There's a lot of little projects going on, but no one's been able to scale up to a significant amount that I've seen yet. I mean, if I was gonna look at what else could be a risk to us, someone else getting a huge permit for disposal somewhere, problems, I don't know where you'd put it, that's close enough to be
Right.
competitive. But should someone be able to do that and just really lower the floor of the market? That tipping fee is your kind of thing you watch that's gonna generate your revenue. And if that model each year grows up pretty high, and that's because of that increasing tipping fee, that 1% increase gets you quite a bit of money pretty quickly with the amount of tons we'll be taking in. But, yeah, if it's some alternative, it's either that or the tipping fee, that would be my biggest concerns that really impact the numbers I presented today. But,
And I would think that over the next years, there's gonna be a lot of innovation, as you're just alluding to, in other markets where they have no more space. And there's gonna be, you know, technology is gonna be driving some of those things and might find some economies of scale.
yeah, you also have to have your regulatory staff has to be comfortable with it. We've seen with some other things that TCQ sometimes is, we'll see. We're not, they don't jump to the front of the parade and those type of things. No,
Right,
sir.
yeah.
Um,
And I had a question on the post-closure
Yes, sir.
phase of the landfill. You said that the state does inspection. Is that annually, every 6 months? How often do they do that?
Because we went through an expansion, we were inspected at least annually. We were a frequent, I won't say target, but they made sure we were in compliance due to the amount of press we were generating and how much our neighbors cared about what we were doing. It's probably now at least once every other year, If you're in a smaller market like in Lubbock, we were the biggest landfill in Lubbock out there. So our inspector was out at least once a year, if not twice. I think it's just lack of things to do, but we got inspected a lot more often than things are here. But I'll tell you, when we go through an inspection here, they have to bring an entire team out there, and they look at everything, and where they're out there for 3 or 4 days, unlike in Lubbock where it was half a day inspection.
Right. And over the last few years, have they found things and cited us for violations in those
The one thing we've been
inspections?
cited for is we used to use an alternate daily cover called slurry. So if you've ever seen a hydro seeder, if you've ever seen it looks like a gun that shoots stuff out on the slopes, we used to use the same thing here to cover our trash. The problem was, if you had a water bottle sticking up out of your trash like this, if you didn't cover the entire, all 360 degrees of it, and one part didn't have any slurry on there, you were dinged. So we quit using that, and so we went to tarps. It's either dirt or it's tarp. It's very easy to tell if we're in compliance. So it's been minor things like that. No, Camelot has been a great partner in terms of that. They care a lot about compliance. They really strive to do that. They have world-class inspections, and I'm not gonna lie, when they have world-class inspection, there's an uptick in terms of what goes on out there. And all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed in terms of aesthetics. But their company cares a lot about their record. And they've been great partners to date in terms of how they operate the landfill.
I have one more question. You talking about the selling the gas that comes off of
Yes, sir.
this to someone, a third party that's in converting it to electricity?
Yes, sir.
And we're getting about 290,000 annually
Yes,
out of
sir.
that? Isn't there room for that to probably increase and grow?
Definitely, there already is right now. And so, as soon as I get a little bit of time on my hands, is develop an RFP for the gas that's not being used by that plant. And put an RFP out there for the other part.
Because I would
When I
think
have
in
two
the-
plants, I'd have to make sure they work nicely, play nicely together, make sure we could provide gas and everyone's happy. But that's the next big thing for me in terms of landfill and just what that might generate for us.
I would just think the way the world's going, and, this region is growing so rapidly, and, cost for infrastructure and energy is going to increase,
Yes, sir.
regardless of what it does kind of quarter to quarter. That could be maybe a growth component in that overall picture.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like I said, if it goes to a pipeline quality gas product, that may be a little higher paying right now versus electricity. But, there's more details why I want electricity too, but we don't necessarily need to get into that now. It had to do with compliance, make sure we can stay in compliance. Things have changed since then in terms of the technology for pipeline quality products.
Thanks very much. I always learn when we talk. Thanks. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Rotana.
Thank you, Shane, for everything. I would be very interested in a tour of the Camelot landfill, because I've been
Okay.
able to make the youth commission trip. Also, just congratulations again on the sustainability grant that you all received. I think that's really great. So really excited, more to come on that. I don't have any questions. I just really applaud your effort to really be proactive in making sure that we do what we need to do now to be able to save for later, especially with the soil. So just want to applaud you and your team for being proactive on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
I would echo Councilwoman Rotana. I just have nothing but respect for you. I think that our model is so fiscally responsible for us to end Camelot's life with an $88 million surplus in funds that we can then turn around and reinvest in hopefully what is newer technologies or in a way for our city to continue its waste disposal with hopefully little impact to our citizens. I think that's so smart. I think that speaks so highly of the entire department and that forward thinking and dealing with the harder decisions now versus just putting them off and kicking that can down the road for someone else to take care of. So I'm thrilled with what direction we're heading in, and I really look forward to hopefully having a path for the mulching on site. I think that would be fantastic. I know I've heard several residents say the same thing. This is the first time that I've heard that we are actually able to sell our gas, our waste gas off for energy. I think that's amazing. I would encourage the rest of our communications department maybe to get the word out so that our residents realize what a great job you guys are doing and how proactive and progressive that we are, even with the challenges of being in this area. So thank you.
when the Youth Advisory Council was out there, we shot a video of the landfill itself and
Oh, perfect.
the gas energy.
Yeah, well, and I would also, I have not gotten to tour, and so I would love to join Crystal on the next tour that you do.
Thank you. I gotta admit, Terry's been a huge supporter of the mulching operation. He's really pushed to keep seeing that on there. He's kept it on the agenda, so I applaud him for that.
Yep, I think it's great. We use a ton of it in our Parks and Rec department, and to offset those costs by using something that we make in-house is, I mean, that just sounds like a smart choice, so. But I do appreciate that you're trying to find an affordable path for us. You know, we don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face, so.
No, it's, yeah, very few cities, I mean, Irving and Grand Prairie both have landfills, but it's only for the waste generated within their city. And so that means their residents pay a tipping, or not a tipping fee, a garbage fee each month.
Yeah,
Whereas your residents here, y'all in Houston, only two cities I'm aware of that don't charge the resident a direct fee for garbage service. There may be others out there, but those are the two that I'm aware of that are.
We need to let people know that.
yes, we need to continue to tout that, because that's a
And those folks don't
huge.
realize that. They
Yep.
assume it's built in one of the other fees, and I always have to tell them whenever I talk to them, no, it's not.
Yep.
So,
Shane, thank you.
yes, sir.
Next is A4, discuss and review 2022 city council meeting calendar dates.
Mayor and council, if you would take one and pass it down. You have been provided a draft copy of the 2022 council dates for your review. Here. I put in there, so it's basically the first and third, which is the resolution that the city council has adopted in the past to, first and third for the public, starting at 3 o'clock, and I've kept it that way unless there's a holiday. This is January, February, March, and April. Kind of flip through, let me know if you have any questions or changes. I included Good Friday. I included a retreat, January 26th, which is with the council, so if you work, try to get off that whole day. Any questions on January through April?
It looks good.
Thank you, sir. All right, May through August, first and third. One meeting in July, 2 meetings in August, our retreats in August, 9th, 10th, and 11th. The dates in August are based on our approval of the budget, so it's hard to move those dates.
I talked to the school board, they're gonna work around our schedules. They were real excited about that.
Any changes May through August, anyone?
Those look good too.
I think we should take August off. It's too hot.
September through December, these are our dates. I put us in November for one date and December for one date. Otherwise, we would have a back-to-back meeting on the October 25th, November 1st. We can always call a meeting if we need to.
Amy, I only have one question. I talked to Charles when I met with him earlier in the week. On that National Night Out, on October the 3rd,
Yes, ma'am.
traditionally we've done, except for this year, this will be the first year that we've done it on a Monday. And the feedback that I got from some of the residents was that they would prefer that it stay on the Tuesday. And I know that we don't do it in line with national, but at least to keep it in line with Texas.
Okay.
So that we were kind of participating in the same time that the other cities were, just because there was a little bit confusion as to when it was happening, because they assumed it was the same as everybody else. And I couldn't see that we were in conflict with anything by moving it back to the 4th.
Okay, I'll move it to the 4th if everybody's in agreement.
Fine with that.
All right. That was easy, easiest year ever.
Now I'll come up with a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Sustainability, I did not see listed as a committee presenting an update.
At the time, they weren't recreated. We did this early.
Okay,
So since we just recreated them, I'll add them.
okay, thank you very much.
I'll make a
And then, if there's the possibility that we can consider something for the the youth council as well. I know that we could
An update.
perhaps as a council go to them rather than just, we could work something out.
Okay.
That we could do that. And I know that that runs through the May timeframe, at least at this timeframe, at this juncture. So I think it'd be good that I know that Cristal, you've participated heavily with them, and I think that's been a good program, and there's full transparency. My daughter is on that, but I think it is something we need to look at continuing.
I agree.
I agree with that.
With no other changes, I'm gonna close it out here.
I just have one, more of a comment. So with TML and NLC, they always happen in the fall. Obviously, we don't have the dates for those. But we may have to be mindful and be amenable to making a change, or if it so happens to be, because usually it starts on a Tuesday. And especially if we have committees, if we're in committees, we have to be there by that Tuesday morning. So I just want council to be mindful of that.
Looks like it's October 5th through October 7th of 2022. So if you have National Night Out on the 4th, it would be a turnaround.
That's gonna stink.
Yeah. So that may be
NLCs.
why we chose the 3rd, I'm not sure.
NLC is usually the first week in November.
It is, yeah.
That was TML.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, TML is the,
3rd,
Fifth or
5th through the
Fifth.
7th, yeah.
That's not that bad because it's in Texas. It's more the NLC one. Okay. Then we should, yeah, for NLC, it's usually the first week of November, so we should be fine. But, okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, next is A5, discuss board and commission appointments for Animal Shelter Advisory Board, Art and Culture Committee, Senior Advisory Board, ZBA, Code Board of Appeals.
So just to clarify on the boards, we have an opening in Animal Shelter, Art and Culture, Senior Advisory, and Zoning Board of Adjustment. All of these, with the shift movement of the alternates up to a regular member, opens up alternate 2 vacancies. So if you look at the staff report, I've got on there who resigned, and they'll be shifting everybody up. There may be, since some of them are open seats, we're filling their term. So it won't really count against them, if that makes sense. And today, there's no action, just kind of, I wanted you to discuss the applicant list and see if there's anybody you want, and just talk about it, and ask questions. But these are 4 alternate 2 seats. Let me know if you have questions.
You want to start with animal, work our way through? Councilmember Tanaka?
So for animal, my recommendation is Diana Herrera. She was actually one of the ones that was an applicant the first go-around. She is an assistant DA, actually called her, and she said, please don't let me do anything legal. I want to do something that I'm really passionate about. Because at first I thought of her for zoning, but she's very passionate. She volunteers in the SPCA. Had a really long conversation with her. She wants to get involved. She's been a resident for a long time. And she's actually in District 2. So anyways, that would be my recommendation. Have a lot of really great people, but that would be mine.
What was her name again?
Diana Herrera. And she was one of the applicants the first
Right,
time
no,
around.
I remember the name. I'm looking
And
for it on
she-
my list here of
Yeah.
eligible.
And she actually did it, she applied again
yeah.
as a new applicant, so.
And I would agree with that, because I was impressed with her the first go-round, and.
You sat in the room.
We just were out of spots, and so I think overall, I think she was our next pick in that.
Yeah, if I remember
on that
correctly, she was the
list.
one that had, if we would've had one more position, she would've been the one that would.
Yep.
Councilmember Lynn?
Well, Diane Graffenberg is one that stuck out in my mind. She had expressed interest previously, and I know she served, I can't remember right off the top of my head, I know she served on another board. Yeah. And, but anyway, that's who resonates with me.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
I remember the Herrera candidate from our discussion, so that's who I was leaning towards.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Again, I recall conversations with Ms. Herrera. I'm fine with that, with her, and I also know Diane Greifenberg, and she has expressed interest in the animal shelter and loves animals, and she has a German name, too.
And she's also interested in senior advisory. I saw that too.
Yep, yep.
That's 3 for Diana, so. I guess we'll,
But we don't have any action tonight?
No.
right?
no, these are just
Okay.
names to,
Okay.
it'll all be on consent at the next meeting, as we all choose who's there. Okay, so Diana for animal, next is art and culture.
This one was hard. There were a lot of really great people.
There were.
So I had 3 actually, because I think all of them would do a really good job. I will say Elizabeth Villafranca has been a huge supporter of all of our cultural events from a financial standpoint, but also as a volunteer. And so especially with Hispanic Heritage Month and Dia de los Muertos and really anything else culturally related. So that was my first choice. I think Yvonne Sage, retired art professor, I think she would be great. And Eve also was of interest. She's a freelance filmmaker. Just her repertoire just seemed really great. So those would be my top 3. Elizabeth, Yvonne, and Eve.
Councilmember Williams?
This one was really tough. And really, and I don't even have an order, but Elizabeth was fine just because I know that she's been involved in everything, but Eve's background, it just seemed neat and like something new that maybe we don't have represented on the board. So
It was really.
no, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't pick one over the other.
Okay.
But both of those really stood out to me, so.
Eve,
Eve?
I was in either Elizabeth or Eve's. Those were 1 and 2.
Okay.
I had Liz Villafranca, number 1, and Eve, number 2.
Oh, wow.
Well, everyone has said Eve, so.
Do we only have one spot?
We only have one
That's it?
spot.
You want to increase the size?
I know. Well, hey, if we have that multicultural
Heidi would
council,
do a good
Elizabeth can be
job.
on that one and we'll be fine.
There you go.
Yeah, and you know, I'd really, and Elizabeth's gonna be involved
She
regardless.
is, she is.
So maybe next
So
time.
maybe next time, or maybe
just
we
being
reach out
mindful.
to her more on some of our,
And there'll be changes down the
Task
road.
force.
I think the reason we've got some of these is people have resigned
Yeah.
for one
Yeah.
reason or another.
I would just encourage us to keep it.
Larger
keep
the
in
board,
mind.
there'll be more vacancies
Yeah.
turning up, you know.
you mentioned that Ms. Villafranca has done things in the city, like what?
What do you mean? Well, she was one of the biggest volunteers for the Hispanic Heritage Festival.
Okay.
And she has always been involved with the Dia de los Muertos event. And also was involved with having events for the Farmers Branch Chamber. There was actually a business expo that she hosted during COVID last year. So she's been a volunteer for also Mary Immaculate for a number of years. And I figure
Yes.
anything that people do in the community is in the community regardless if it's city related. So, and I would just, you know, if there's ever another opening, I would encourage us to keep that in mind. But I can give you a laundry list of things, Terry. So, but those are just some of the ones that that come to mind.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to senior board. Michael?
I have Kathleen Weaver as number 1. And I've had some folks on the current senior advisory board and just some active adults reach out to me, and they're very impressed with her and think she would be a good addition to the board.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
I didn't have a strong pick in this particular area, so I'm open.
We'll have some more discussion, see if
Very good, thank
you're
you.
inspired. Councilmember Lund?
So Linda Equal is who I would recommend.
Linda?
Equal?
Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I get that.
And she's been very involved with the senior center. She's taught classes up there. I would recommend that if you're going to, as we are looking to appoint somebody to that board, that my fellow council members engage with people from the current board there to find out what their preference is, because they're going to have to work with them. And
I've done that. And I've had some of them reach out to me as well.
okay, I'll just, never mind. It's fine, thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
I didn't have really a preference, other than I had thought about, because I know Diane Graffenberg, and I know that she is eager to be involved in, and since I had kind of had a preference for Ms. Herrera for the shelter, I would just like for her to be at least considered for the senior advisory, the advisory board.
Councilmember Rotano?
I had Diane as well. I mean, I think anyone could do a great job, but mine was Diane.
Back to you.
My first choice is Kathleen.
You're still
Weaver.
Kathleen? Okay.
Yes.
Well, the
Yes.
only person who's just wavering over here. Mr. Merritt?
I think the opportunity for Diane to serve as their secondary would be perfectly fine. She's, was in the first round of applicants, so I'm comfortable there.
That's 3 for Diane, so. All right. Next is the ZBA. Councilmember Driscoll.
I don't have a strong preference one way or the other,
All right.
to be honest.
Councilmember Merritt.
I'm leaning towards Kevin Caldwell.
All right.
What district are we losing from? I can
4,
see
5,
that
1,
we,
3 does not have a spot.
Sims.
yeah, that's why I thought that we didn't have a
So do you,
representative. So my preference would be for Connie
Connie? Councilmember Lynn?
Hardy.
Kevin Caldwell.
Kevin? Crystal?
I have no preference. I think either of them would do a good job. I would say representation, so Connie, but other than that, I think Kevin would also do an equally good job.
Will remind us, this is the first time tonight we've taken representation into consideration.
I know, it's
And I
just
could
that
point to every
the
board where there
zoning
is a lack
board.
of that on every board, so.
I know, it's just that it's the zoning board, that representation would be more of a concern for me than, say the animal shelter, something that's, but either works for me.
Okay. Well, we got 2 Connies, 2 Kevins. Good decision, everybody.
Did Todd Warren apply for that board?
If he's not listed.
You're putting the pressure on me, I guess I go with Connie. So,
Okay.
No qualms.
No
Connie
qualms?
was on the park river.
Okay. Qualms? Qualms? Any?
Any concern?
Merit has none. We got 3 for Connie, so it's just,
We're not voting, but.
we're not voting. I'm just saying we have 3 it's for a
I'm advocating
recommendation.
For Kevin Caldwell.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
3 for Connie, so we'll roll with that for the time being, see how a vote shakes out at the next meeting. Okay. I think that's it for that. Next is A6, discuss future agenda items. Councilmember Rotano.
None for me, sir.
Councilmember Williams.
None for me.
Councilmember Lynn.
I'd like to see if we couldn't get a report on the number of investor and rental properties in the city and what they represent in terms of
What did you say? Owner of?
investor and rental properties,
For residential,
properties that are being rented, non-owner occupied.
Yeah.
I see.
You just want a list, or?
Well, I'd like to have a discussion about a policy moving forward on this. I know there's nothing we can do to stop people from selling their properties to investors or flippers or anything like that. But I will say, at least in District 4, there have been a number of properties that have come for sale that flippers are buying them. They have no equity in the city. They're not interested in the city except trying to take dollars out of it. And they're not interested in building family neighborhoods. All they want is money. And I see this as a problem for our city, maybe not today, but certainly 10, 15, 20 years from now, in that we're going to have a lot of rented properties. We don't even know the number of properties right now that are rented, because I'm sure there are a lot that haven't been.
But we have the registry.
This isn't a
sure-
discussion. This is Councilmember Lynn explaining what he wants to talk about in the future.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sure there are a lot that haven't registered with the city, that are being rented somehow on their own without our knowledge. And, in my view, it's almost no better than an apartment, because the transient nature of apartments, those folks traditionally don't get involved with the city. They're not interested in participating in the city. They're not involved with the city. And I'd like to see if there's a way that we can work on that.
This is a speech.
A list now, potential discussion later. So,
So that's it.
Councilmember Merritt,
I do not have anything at this time.
Councilmember Driscoll.
I don't have any future items. I'd like to bring up an old item I brought up, discussion on new urbanism. And I know that we've had some changes in P and Z and leadership there. So it's, again,
Yeah, we're targeting that for the strategic plan retreat in January.
okay.
We've identified a speaker.
Okay,
That will pay for it.
excellent, excellent. Glad to hear that.
You write the new urbanism for the okay. I don't have anything, so B, executive session. Council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate regarding, discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of real property north of Farmers Branch Lane, south of Valwood, east of I-35, west of Jersey Lane. We'll take a quick recess. The time is 4:22.